We're going to walk through how to create a custom screen in Darkroom. What we have here is a screen that I created. Got some basic elements to it. We have some buttons here for start for photos and for video. And I have it set where pictures will show up over here during the session. So I'm going to go ahead and just press start. And notice how the buttons disappear and the photo placeholders show up over here on the left side here. So it's going to do the countdown. And it's basically like every other screen has our countdown. The photos would show up over here. And we're going to go do one more. And then we will get our end message as that comes up. So nope, I'm not going to do either of those. And there's our thank you message. And we wait a few seconds. It's going to reset. And we're going to have our start buttons reappear over here. All right, so we're going to recreate this screen here in Darkroom. And we do that on the Screens tab. As you can see, here's the screen as it's selected. Now, one thing about creating custom screens is you have to do some work ahead of time. Now, I created this background graphic. I also created these graphical buttons. So these have to be done outside of Darkroom. Now these I did in Photoshop as well as the background. You can use any other graphics program. So what we do to begin the process is we hit the choose button, get to our selection screen, and we just click new. Very much like creating a custom strip template. And descriptive name, I'm going to just make this, we'll just call it test screen. For template size, this is going to automatically detect your screen resolution. I'm on a slightly different monitor, so that's the resolution that I'm using. So whatever shows up in here, as long as it says current screen resolution, that's fine. And stretch template to fill screen. That'll get rid of any very small pieces of a graphic that might be just a millimeter or two short of the screen. It'll stretch it out. One thing I recommend is not choosing a background color, just leave it as it is, or setting text color. If you set these in the template body, it makes it difficult to edit some things later on. So, and this is a horizontal template because I'm going through by the width. So I'm going to hit OK, and I get my canvas. Now the first thing I'm going to do is add my background, because that's going to be the base layer. And to do that, I just come down to Add Artwork. And I simply browse to the location, which I put everything on the desktop to make it easy to find, and there it is. So that's my rough stone screen background. I just go ahead and highlight that and hit open. Don't need to do anything else with it. We're going to talk more about this line here when shown in a little bit. Because it's the background, I want it always to show, and that's the default. So I don't need to make any adjustments here. Now, I'm going to click OK, and there's my background. So right now the core of my screen is set to go. The very next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and add your live view window. So come down here to add live view. And you can start with the default and resize it. Now what I've done is I have opted to have a specific size after playing with it. So I wrote that down. So I'm going to make this 1130. And I'm going to make the height 800. Now, I also wanted to have a border on this. So I can draw a frame around this, which I'm going to do. And I'm going to choose a color. So I'm going to choose this one here because it matches pretty much the overall background here. And I'm just going to say OK. I'm going to leave the default at 3 pixels. And I'm going to say OK here. And this is my screen. So these are the proportions that I want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink this down, and it'll do it evenly. OK. And I'm going to place that where I would like it. So let's just say, whoops. And when that happens, just hit undo. So I'm going to put it right about there, and that's where I want it. So that's going to give me room for text at the bottom and to put in my graphic buttons. And as you can see, it's got a slight frame around it. It helps break it up from the background, make it stand out a little bit more. So next I need to add buttons, add some functionality to this screen. Now, a couple ways you can do that. If you don't have pre-made graphics, you can always go to Add Shape, and you can choose a shape. Typically, people choose the circle, and certainly not pink. I would make that, let's go with the same color just for fun, just to show. So I would just get that set. Now I need to figure out beforehand what I want to do with these buttons. I do not want these buttons to show up through the entire event. I want them to disappear when they tap one of them to start a session. So what I do is I come down here to the advanced section, when shown, and I click on Edit. Brings this pop-up, and this is the list of your options. So I want this to show with start instructions and hide during the session. So I hit OK, and then I'm just going to do OK on that. So that's my quick and easy button. And then what I can do here is just add text. Probably have to make this a little smaller and see how it looks. Okay. So this is how you would add this up to here. So it still needs to be smaller yet. So I would, continuously adjust. Maybe make it 2 lines, make it a little smaller yet. See what we got. There we go. So I could place that on top of the circle. And I want to do the same thing because these are 2 separate objects. I want to make sure in the properties, when shown, is start instructions and hide during session. Okay. So that's how you can create a simple button to do what you would like it to do. If you don't have graphics already created. Now I am going to get rid of these. And we are going to go with the graphics that I did create. And to add those, I'm just going to go to Add Artwork. And I'm going to browse for them. And my first button is my Start button here. So I go ahead and open that. Now here we have, again, so I want this shown just during the start instructions. Hit OK. Now, one thing that you also have to do is add a booth command. Okay, I didn't bother doing this on the shape or the text. Just didn't want to repeat everything. But you need to tell it what happens when you tap that area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Edit. And these are your options for booth commands. Now, I am going to start a session, and that's for photos. Okay. So start session. And then I'm just going to say OK. It's going to plop it on here. Now I've got to resize it and move it into position. I'm going to want it right here. I'm going to make that a little bigger. And set it right there. Okay. All right, so now I have my photo button. Like I said, I also want this to do video, so I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to find the graphic I created for video. Open that. Same thing, I need to make it visible only during the instructions. And for booth command, I need to make it start a video session. But I'm going to choose start video. I'm going to have it jump right into there. You can add different layers here. If I were to choose video session, I would have created additional buttons for this. And this would disappear. And now those other graphics that I add would only appear during the video session, which would be something like start video, cancel video. But I'm going to have this jump right into start video. And I'm going to hit OK. And OK again. And same thing. I got to resize and bring it in. So I think I'm going to resize it so it's fairly close to that. A little bit more. Okay, that's pretty close. And I'm just going to place that guy down here. All right. So now when this area of the screen is tapped, it'll start for photos. In this area, it'll start a video. All right. Now, I also want the pictures to display as they're being taken. So the easy way to do that is to add photos. Now, this is just like the strips. This will add rows of photos rather than create 3 individual boxes and align them here. So I'm going to add photos. Now, I only want 1 column because they're going to be vertical, but I do want 3 rows. Okay. And we just leave everything else there because we're not doing green screen or anything like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. And I'm going to move them over and then start to shrink them down so that they fit. A little more. Yeah, we'll bring it in like that. And even more. There we go. And I'll line them up right about there. Okay. So now, basically I have an effective screen, but I'm going to want to add probably some text to personalize it for each event. So I've chosen my font already. It remembered the last one that I used. And I'm just going to put a placeholder and I'm going to choose my font size. And I'm just going to place that there so that later, every time I open this up, I can go ahead and customize that. And, just simply by double clicking on it. Now, this one, the text, I prefer to have it show up all the time when shown. You could choose to make this show up only during the session. I don't know why you wouldn't want it always visible, but you do have that option. So I am putting it always visible and OK. So there we go. This is, in effect, a customized template, completely from scratch. You do have to do a little bit of work, like I said. If you want to create graphics, Photoshop or Photoshop type program would be very handy for that. And I'm going to save as. Learn how to spell. So my new test template. And because I already gave it a test screen name, that's the one it's going to take. So this is the one I just created. And this is my original rough stone that I was working with, slightly different dimensions. So that's why it looks a little bit different. So if I go ahead and choose that, here is my screen. I'm going to go ahead and hit Start Booth. Okay, so touch screen to begin. Going to press Start. And that's how it goes through the cycle. Now, a couple things. When we hit Start Booth, okay, now I don't have my printer hooked up. Okay, so notice now this is showing when before it didn't want it to. So if that happens, what you have to do is you have to come back in, edit your screen, come in here and make sure under the options that you have it set during the session only. Okay, so I would do that. I would save my change and just fire it up to take a quick peek. And they're not there. So fantastic. I'm good to go. So when I hit this, they disappear over here. They show up over here. We'll do the countdown and we'll just go ahead and pop out of that. Okay. So that is, again, how you create a screen. Now, you can create variances of these. You can obviously change your live view window, anything that you want to do. One thing I try to do is make sure that the live view window sort of matches the print template that I'm going to use. So if we were to back out of here and take a look at this, let's just go to edit. And so this one's a little more boxy looking than what I had on my screen. And just the reason is the two are not tied together. So if your live view window is drastically disproportionate from what the print template photo holder is, then people are going to get a little confused as to why they arrange themselves one way in here and it looks different. So I'm just going to go ahead, make that a little boxier. That's fine. I can move that down just a bit. Save that. And this is going to now be a little bit more accurate as far as what will get printed out. And that is how we make a custom template in Darkroom.